Welcome back to Tabletop Warden. Guys, as you can tell, we have a very special occasion today. As you can tell, we are, well, talking in English. After like hundreds of episodes, we decided to finally record a episode in English. And we also have a guest at our side, Mickey from Stats. Welcome back.
Guten Tag. It's opposite day.
Yeah, exactly.
It's nice to be here. It's nice to be chatting with you guys again. As if people haven't heard my voice enough. It's great, and I obviously love spending time chatting with Bartender because he's a great guy. And yeah.
Oh no, I'm blushing.
And of course, Bartender, Sebastian.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. So there's a specific reason why we're actually recording this episode in English. There are a lot of people requesting actually us doing more content in English. And today is a very great occasion to do that because we will talk about the Free Folks Heroes Box Free in our lineup of podcasts where we, just give our opinion about those boxes. And I mean, like, Mickey is playing Free Folk since the release of the game, since the release of the Free Folk. And he has like, how many games did you play with Free Folk? Just told me a couple of minutes ago.
So as of the 2021 update, it will be 95.
Yeah.
But I mean, I had like 100 games pre like 1.6 during lockdown, everything like that. So
exactly.
Too much.
Yeah. Yeah, that sums it up basically. So there's no better person here to talk about this box because Mickey has a lot of experience with this faction. And let's be honest, we Wardens, we are not the most profound Free Folk players. Like, I actually hate those guys. Like, sorry, Mickey. I'm
gone.
He's gone. Like, he's gone. I mean, like, they're not my favorite faction, but it's just not my style of gameplay. And Yannick is actually playing more Lannisters right now. Sebastian is the start player in our group, so we kind of lack the expertise here. But I guess you are here to help us out. And without any further ado, let's jump into it because we have a couple of things to discuss here, and I really would like to get your input on those. First of all, let's talk about the attachments in the box. We have, for 1 point, the Great Walrus, steeled through ice and snow, which brings battle scars to the table. How do you feel about battle scars in Free Folk right now?
I should probably summarize by saying I don't think battle scars is that good an ability. Just off the bat, like Belwas attachment for 1 point has it in Targaryen. And especially you've got pikemen who are like notoriously hard to kill, and it's still not good there. So I mean, am I going to really put it in a unit of raiders which die to a stiff breeze? Probably not. That doesn't mean it doesn't have a place though. There is a lot of discussion around the likes of the coordination tactics, being able to copy battle scars onto another unit, being able to have that unit then gets attacked, but it doesn't matter because you still collect that token for the Walrus's unit. There's regroup and reform, obviously, so you can move the Walrus after his unit's kind of battered apart and move it to another unit, right? It's important that those options are available.
Yeah,
but I don't know if it's that good.
Should you build a list around it, right? Because you're still relying on having those cards. That's always a discussion that comes up when we talk about attachments in Free Folk. There's always this topic, hey, there's coordination tactics and so on, but
yeah, basically.
And that's cool. It's really cool to have it, but yeah, does it warrant getting a specific attachment just for the case that you might draw into that card early or at the precise moment you need it?
Yeah,
I get that.
It's difficult. It's difficult. I don't know if it sees more play because people will experiment with it, and then it will end up seeing kind of like, actually, it kind of worked to give me these bonuses, or if it's one of those that just never sees play, so never gets experience and never gets tested, and as a result, just kind of disappears into obscurity and just no one cares. Move on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame because his sculpt is amazing. But yeah.
Oh, he looks awesome. Yeah, that's right. He really does. What about a combination of Battle Scars and maybe Fen Warriors? Like, is this something you would play?
No.
Okay, like I try, guys.
I know, right? So the problem isn't that I wouldn't try it. Actually,
yeah.
The problem is in a free folk list, finding that 1 point to put an attachment in Fens like that is hard. Especially when that point could be a raid leader, which has been known and is one of the most successful attachments at 1 point for free folk at the moment. So to have something that's not as good as something that's already available and is being used, I don't see it happening, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, and in the Fen Warriors, you're basically paying for our favorite ability, Taunt, right? That's priced into the Fen Warrior unit.
I mean,
and like, well,
hey, and I will have you know, and I will eat my words for this. Hopefully, no one watches any of the stuff that I make because I slate Taunt to bits. I think Fens are really good. I don't know if Taunt is that good, but Fens in particular are very strong at the moment.
Cool.
I think that the Great Walrus, if he's good, you will probably see him in Fens or in a raid leader unit, raider unit that then gets transferred to Fens, and same thing, right?
Okay.
I do actually think Fens are very good though, and Taunt is enough of a meme that it doesn't feel like you're paying for it. So it's a nice addition.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I'll eat my words a little bit on that one.
That's very interesting. Is there a specific reason why you think Fens right now are in a way better spot than they were before? Like, except for Hold the Line, which is, in my personal opinion, an amazing ability.
Yeah, hold the line.
That's the entire reason, right? Okay, I see. Okay, I got you. So, I mean, that ability is amazing. Like, you can just deal those up to 5 auto hits, right? Yeah. Basically just on activating this unit. And we will talk about the Valros commander later on, and he seems to be like the perfect fit into those guys. Okay, I can see where you're coming from, but I know we are derailing the conversation here a little bit, but I really want to know one thing, like, why is, for example, the raid leader right now so popular and so strong? Is there a specific reason? Could you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, so the conversation at the start of 2021 revolved, for Free Folk, revolved around 2 components, which was the Champions of Bone versus raid leaders. Basically, the reason the conversation was those 2 pieces. They're both 1 point, and they both offer an ability that doubles down on damage. One of them being panic-based, one of them obviously being hits-based. Now, the reason that for me in 2021, the raid leader won out for me in my lists was because of the native 4+ to hit on Free Folk. 4+ to hit isn't good, especially in long combat. So bringing a raid leader into the fold, making it a 3, like people say, oh, but the intimidating presence is like an extra wound on a failed panic test, and you've got things that will make people fail panic tests. I'm like, yeah, that's all good, but none of that matters if you don't get through to the panic stage phase of the attack because you didn't do any hits. So I much prefer the raid leader. It's still a toss-up between which one is better. They both have a place, but raid leader for me is a better attachment the vast majority of the time. And because he's a better attachment, he ends up being very good because an extra dice is very good. You add into that, he doesn't just affect his own unit, it's units with crit blow now getting an extra dice. That's actually not 1 extra hit. That's actually slightly more on an average of more than 1 hit. Especially if you account for rerolls and things. So yeah, the raid leader just wins out, unfortunately.
I see.
So yeah.
I see. Very interesting. Very interesting to know, because we actually had, like, I'm gonna be honest with you, we didn't have a really, like, a clue why he's so popular right now, but now that you kind of explain it, it makes way more sense. Very interesting. But let's go ahead. So after the Valros, we have Jon Snow. This traitorous little son of a gun is now part of the Free Folk for 2 points. Has Order Reckless Heroism, And Southern Knowledge, an entirely new ability which allows him once per game at the start of any turn to target one enemy in long range and line of sight. And until the end of the turn, they will lose all abilities and it cannot be targeted by friendly tactic cards. That is very interesting. I didn't expect to be John kind of a control piece in Free Folk. I expected him to be more of an aggressive type. Like he has reckless heroism, right? But maybe a keyword like Sundering or something like that because of his broadsword. But okay, that is kind of a very new approach. Go ahead.
But isn't it this aggressive? I mean, he has reckless heroism, as you say.
Yeah, sure.
And he can shut down abilities or the ability to play tactics cards on a particular unit, especially like defensive cards. So if you really want to make sure, okay, get that unit, I think it's in that case, it's a kind of aggressive ability. I know it's a control ability, but combined with reckless heroism, you can set him up to maybe, deliver a finishing blow or something like that. So
I see what you're coming from. You're totally right. I was just trying to say that maybe he was a little bit. You could have been a little bit more straightforward, like the Night's Watch version, where he has Warcry, which is like, okay, I'm gonna make you panic and vulnerable, and then I will just charge you with this auto 6. But here we have like this, control-y aspect to him. But Mickey, what is your opinion on John, like in Free Folk?
It's difficult. I'll talk about Southern Knowledge first of all. I think Bartender really nailed it there. For me, the vast majority of the time, this is going to be used to switch off ultimately hardened. If people are running champions or Warrior Sons, I should say, it's going to be turned off their faith ability. We're going to be turning off defensive abilities in general. Pikemen, you turn off set for charge and you turn off shield wall. That's huge. There isn't much in Free Folk that really does that at the moment. So it gives them the opportunity to buy into those orders and bypass them, which otherwise was missed completely outside of Mance. So yeah, I do think that Southern Knowledge as its own thing is fine. I don't know if it's amazing, but it's fine. It's a tool. It gets used. Reckless Heroism is difficult because Reckless Heroism is a good card or a good ability.
Yeah.
But we have Tormund who gives auto 6 anyway in his tactics cards. And Reckless Heroism for the D3 wounds, it is a cost. People don't think of it as a cost. It is a cost. I'll be honest, I'm not being like, oh wow, Jon Snow's amazing. I've been dealing with pikemen having this tool in my arsenal. But having the tool in my arsenal gives me the opportunity to change the way I deal with them. I think this will be a useful tool for some people. I do think people should play with it and try and see how it works. I don't expect it to make the top Free Folk lists so much, but I do think it's a worthy consideration if you're struggling with defensive tech. The one thing that people might want to see a combo with Jon Snow, and this is a combo I personally despise because I absolutely despise the unit I'm about to mention.
Oh,
but it's Cave Dweller Savages.
Oh,
yeah, that was the obvious thing, right? I was sitting here like, it's gotta come up.
Yeah, movement 6 anyway. You can bring your grit down if you want for +1 movement. Ignore the hindering, ignore the rough. Your 7 movement, your auto 6. You're charging 13 inches. That's brilliant. You're auto charging 13 inches. That's amazing. Except you do wounds to yourself and not enough to remove a rank. And then when you attack them, you wound yourself and probably kill yourself. Cave Dwellers, against anyone who's played Free Folk, Cave Dwellers tend to kill themselves. I have never lost a unit of Cave Dwellers in 2021 to an enemy attack. I've always lost them
that's
to my
really
own
sad.
attack.
Oh wow!
Okay. That's a bummer, actually. Yeah, right. They are in a really weird spot after they have been changed. Like they have been overperforming before, and now they're like garbage. It's weird. It's totally weird. John seems to be totally fine, and I kind of am a little bit afraid of him as a Greyjoy player because he can basically turn off my Iron Makers and What Is Dead May Never Die, which is also, a little bit frustrating. But I guess because he's a character and this is a once per game ability, it's totally okay for 2 points. So yeah. There you go, John. He should have stayed in the Night's Watch, but that's just my opinion. Well, whatever. We have Mance Rader. Abel the Bard for 2 points. And before deployment, we have to attach Mance to an enemy infantry unit, ignoring the usual attachment limits. And Mance has 2 abilities. First is Camp Followers. Each time his unit activates, it suffers 1 hit for each of its remaining ranks. And then we have Sabotage and Subvert. Once per game at the start of any turn, your opponent may deal this unit 1 wound. Then you have to remove this model. And if they do, they place 1 condition token on this unit, and it may not use orders or be target of friendly tactic cards this turn. I'm gonna say, like, this guy, I find him to be amazing. To be frank with you, because I think he's 2 points, but he's doing so much. And again, as a Greyjoy player, I'm afraid of this bastard. Like, he can do a lot of work. Like, if you put him into Bowman, he will deal constant hits to them. Reavers. I see a lot of potential in this, but what's your opinion on him?
So, I raise you. If I take Mance, if I take the Bard, I'm not taking him as a commander. Which immediately makes my list arguably worse. And that's a sad thing to say, but it probably does. That doesn't mean he hasn't got a place, right? But I now have to find a place where I can get truly good value out of him for 2 points, rather than saying I want a different commander and then this. And I do think there are options. I'm not saying that he's a dead deal, right? He's not dead on arrival. There are options, but that is a consideration. So I think that when people see Mance and say, "Isn't he amazing?" It's like, yes, but that's kind of because you're missing out on this other thing that he has, which is also amazing. So with that being said, Mance Rader, Abel the Bard, at 1 point with Sabotage and Subvert is just a Lannister turncoat.
Yeah.
And at that point, don't get me wrong, I do actually think turncoats are okay. You know, they are good.
Mm-hmm.
They are not nearly good enough for Lannisters to be good at the moment. You know, Lannisters are struggling at the moment. Turncoats are not enough to make Lannisters suddenly amazing. They didn't see much play in 2021. They aren't seeing much play in 2021 Season 1. They're fine. They're not a problem. They're just not enough. Now, Mance brings that Camp Follows ability for 1 more point. And this is difficult because I have to start weighing up my options here. Ultimately, it's not action. It's only activation. So at most, I can do to a unit 3 hits per activation over 6 rounds. That's 18 hits in total. I'm not going to do 18 hits because the moment you drop a rank, you're dropping down to 2 dice or 1 dice. And even if we assume you fail every panic test, it's a 3, followed by a 3, 6, followed by a 2. That takes you to 10. No, 8. Then it's another 2, which takes you to 10. Well, no, even at 8, assuming you fail, it's then 1s. So by round 4, assuming you never heal, assuming you never touch the unit, it's just like, I don't know, a unit of bowmen that's taken hits. Mance has done 8 wounds.
Mm-hmm.
That's assuming you fail every armor save. That is assuming you never put resources into healing them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also assuming that I haven't used Mance at this point. Because if I use Mance, the hits stop.
Right.
Do I think 8 wounds on a unit that I ideally want to try and kill, or 8 hits even, on a unit that I want to try and kill, is worth it for 1 point? The answer is probably.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a definitive yes, because you have to know what you're losing for that, but it is worth a consideration. I don't think it's as good as its potential could be when people initially look at it. But really, what you want to be using Mance for is those, less so the bowmen, but actually more so those reavers, like you said before.
Yeah.
You nerf the reavers, and then you go, right, and now I want to kill them. So I pop Mance for the extra wound, I put a condition token on, and that's when I kill you. That has got to be the methodology there. This is not just going to work by sitting it in a ranged unit and go, haha, here's some hits. Because you probably, like, vast majority of ranged units don't even drop off until their 3rd rank. You probably just don't care. So there's that. That's the big issue. But it is very good against those aggressive style. I mean, pyromancers turn off horrific visage, make them absolutely useless when you come in and go, ha, lol, your stats are rubbish now.
And then we're getting to a unit where the point value also warrants the investment a little bit more, right? I'd be worried in putting him into a 4-point unit.
Yeah.
I'd rather have something 7 or more points, something. There was already a solid investment on my opponent's part. So now he's putting some pressure on them by generating those hits, especially if it's a unit that doesn't have a high armor. I also wouldn't put him into a unit with a 3-up armor save, I guess.
Well, interesting you should say that, because actually, I think there's a huge amount of value for putting him into those units.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that Free Folk have the ability to do, and people complain about all the time, is there's too many and other combo cards that you've got. You can burst a unit down. But one of the big things with Free Folk, and I reiterated this throughout 2021, is outside of the old Spearwives plus 3 extra hits, which was kind of silly.
Yeah.
You didn't ever really one-shot units. Never truly.
Right.
One of the most valuable things we talk about, Tycho so much, right? One of the most valuable uses of Tycho in 2021, in my opinion, when I saw it played against me, was Tycho being popped to heal 2 wounds on this unit, 1 wound on that unit, 2 wounds on that unit, keeping them all nice and healthy. Because as a Free Folk player, I go, damn, I now can't one-shot you anymore. Mance allows those one-shots against those heavily armored units, because you can go, right, maybe he's taken 2 or 3 wounds. Maybe that isn't worth healing up, because you've been taking other fights on your weaker units elsewhere. Those are now, and then I go, here's a condition token, no orders, no defensive tech, now you're dead. But it has to be that decisive blow that I'm dealing at that time.
No, that for sure. So I agree on that. That's what he's useful for. I was just surprised that you would still stick him into a high armor unit. I might have looked for something a little bit softer, 4-up or something.
Yeah. The big thing is that he's obviously, 6-point. Asher Trappers, right? It's exactly the kind of thing you drop him into Asher Trappers, 100%.
Yeah.
He's, if someone's running something like Bale or Silence Men without Blind Baron, you drop him in there. I'm just thinking Greyjoys. Night's Watch, you 100% sticking him in something like Hunters,
Yeah, exactly. That was my thought. Like, you can get a lot of value out of those Night's Watch units,
But in a Baratheon matchup, there might not be a 4 armored unit on the table. So it's about saying, right, which 3 armored unit am I going to want to chip down the most of my options? And I do think that has a lot of... Lightbring's at 4, yeah. But there's a lot to be said of Mance chipping down even Wardens. So
yeah, interesting take. Yeah, I guess like he has a lot of potential, but 2 points is an investment in Free Folk, right? So you need to find some space, and maybe in a 2-list format you can actually build a list with this guy. Maybe as an anti-Night's Watch like tool, he could be very effective. Like, you can block the Shield of the Realm of Men with this ability, and just deal those pesky hunters wounds all the time, hits all the time, which could be very useful. Interesting attachment for the Free Folk right here. But now we have a very interesting attachment coming up. We have, oh my god, I'm going to try to pronounce this because I just hate those names. I really do. My favorite one is Carl, whatever. I'm not going to even try that. Borok. I guess it's Borok, right?
Yeah,
it sounds like it sounds like a Mortal Kombat character or something like that. It's ridiculous. It's like Borok, the boar skin changer. So this guy comes for 2 points and has the ability Hidden Traps. We need to be precise here. It's the old hidden traps, not the new, sexy, cool hidden traps. So there's that. And he also has Stalwart, so he gains +2 to morale test rolls. But on top of that, he doesn't come alone. He brings along his boar for an additional 2 points. And this boar can only be fielded in an army, including Borok, of course. Should we go over the stats of the boar? Just talk about his attachment first.
No, let's also include
okay. So the boar, as I mentioned previously, costs 2 points. It's a monster which has a speed of 5, hits on a 3+ with 3 dice, has a save of 4+, a moral of 2+, and has Bonded Boar as an innate ability. So this boar comes with 3 wounds. It can perform a maneuver when it starts its activation. It also grants no victory points to the opponent when it dies. And at the start of the round, if this unit is not in long range of Borok's unit, it is destroyed. Basically like a bear, right? So, and on top of that, he also doesn't activate as normal. You need to activate this boar after Borok's unit has activated. So it's like a watered down version of the bond with Ghost. And then we also have Gorin Feet on his melee attack, which is Sundering, and each time this unit completes an attack, if it dealt at least 1 wound, this unit restores 1 wound. It's like a weird mix between Sundering and Fueled by Slaughter, something like that. So this guy is like, I'm gonna let you talk on this one, because I'm very interested what you think about this board for 2 points. Like, let's be real. This is the main reason why you're bringing this guy along, not like hidden traps or something like that.
Oh no! No!
Did I say something wrong? Oh my god!
You've hurt me inside. Now,
awesome.
So it is actually super interesting, right? Okay, cool. Will make it abundantly clear now. I don't particularly like the boar.
Okay.
I'll go over why I think Borok is good, and then I'll expand on why I think the boar isn't as good as people would suggest. Okay? So, Borok brings hidden traps. Now, it is the old version. I am hoping that this sees an FAQ in the very near future to be the updated version. And Stalwart. And that is exactly the kind of attachment you want to put in Raiders. Turning a second unit of Raiders into 3 morale inside a Mance bubble with hidden traps, or 5 morale if you're not running Mance. That is good. You're getting the hidden traps ability, which is the main reason you're taking trappers most of the time. That unit for 5 points is very good. I'm sorry, but like it is. I think that unit is very good value. It's a pain in your ass to deal your opponent to deal with, and it's just unpleasant.
To say the least,
Him for 2 points is great. The question then becomes, do I want the boar for 2 points? Now, there are some benefits, but there is a major downside. The major downside is he's not an activation. And in an army that requires or functions on activations to do well, the boar loses a lot of value simply because of that. If you're running the boar, it is possible, but it's very unlikely that you'll be running a 9 activation list with the boar in. So it means that you're probably running the boar in an 8 activation list, which is fine. Most factions play at 8/7 or even now 6 that we're seeing. But it does mean that you're losing a bit of value there. The boar itself is fine. 5 move with the cavalry move is great. It comes in immediately after Borok's unit, so you can set up these kind of like 1-2 punches. And 3 dice on 3+. I mean, that's a wolf attack or close to it.
Basically. Yeah.
So, and the Sundering's in there as well. That's equivalent to the likes of a Grey Wind or a Summer, less so shaggy. And that's fine. That's fine. He can control objectives, which is great. He can be an objective sitter for free. He can be a roadblock that just kind of sits there and gets charged, and you go, "Oh no, you killed my boar. What am I going to do?" Well, I'm going to charge you.
Yeah, right. Right.
But it's not amazing. The one thing that he does give you advantage with the 8 activation lists is he is a combat drop. So even if you lose deployment, if you are, when we talk about the deployment phase of a game, which is one of the most important phases outside of like the playing and the list building, right?
Right.
Deployment is huge, and giving you a drop in the deployment phase where you can just go, right, I'm going to deploy my boar here. Your opponent's going to go, well, that tells me literally nothing. You've just deployed your boar in the middle of the field. I have no idea where your actual units are going. It's a 2-point piece of garbage. I don't care about it. But I still have to deploy something now. And then you can be like, right, I'm going to deploy Baroque's unit next to the boar. And I go, well, that's a bloody surprise. And now you've dropped 2 of your combat units when the free folk players only dropped like effectively 1. So it regains you tempo on the deployment phase of the game when you lose the roll. I don't think it's amazing. It's not bad. It's by no means bad. It has some synergy with the likes of Overwhelming Assault, and there's too many. It doesn't give you any... and also Surround Exposed, of course. It doesn't give you any synergy with the Regroup and Reform coordination tactics style stuff, though, because he's not infantry.
Right.
Really, for me, I probably won't see the boar played in the lists that I like to run. But, and I'll be honest, I haven't thought about this yet properly. I was thinking, and I mean, the boar, Baroque in a unit of trappers and the boar coming along comes in at 7 points overall, which is the same as a Savage Giant. But I was wondering whether or not that cav move would be value enough for a mag list for a second, because you still get that monster, that beast for cards.
Right.
So I don't know if there's options there. I would have to play around a lot more with that. But it enables things like you're better enabling stuff like Monsters of the North, Shrug It Off if you really want to heal a boar that much. I don't really care. You can enrage him, which is massive. So that's a big thing. You can do Defiant Roar as well. If it gets attacked and it passes the morale on 2+, you weaken everything. So like, there's play there in the mag deck for the boar. So I'm not going to say I've tried it. I haven't. But if people play free folk, right, experiment with that. I do think there's something there. So, yeah.
Yeah, I see. That's quite interesting. I haven't thought about actually, the giant commander in a long. I haven't seen him a lot, to be honest with you. Like, not a lot of people are playing him right now. But maybe, maybe the boar can help here a little bit out. But what would you like to see changed about the board to get it a little bit more, to be a little bit more attractive for the usual free folk list?
Make it its own activation, I guess.
Yeah, perhaps.
But then I guess then
it was the obvious answer, but maybe he has more.
You have this.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you can get the attachment a bit cheaper than other armies can, and
yeah. Bartender, Sebastian's completely right. In that, like, I actually don't think the boar needs changing. Like, the boar is fine. It's not the boar is not the reason I'm sat here being like, oh, the boar's not very good. The actual issue is there are other things in free folk at the moment which just beat it out, and sometimes that's okay to have stuff that's just a bit better. But my point, I think for me, the big thing is it doesn't work in my lists. But I know that, and a shout out to the Australians that play, Robert, I think it's right. Yeah, Robert down in Australia plays a lot, and he really likes the boar.
Cool.
And I do, as I say, I really do think that there's a lot to be said about the boar in the deployment phase, like we talked about, and other things. So he's not useless. He's just not mine.
I mean, and not the least, if you're actually playing at a table, you got a freaking bar to put down on the table, right?
Right.
Yeah, no. I will say
it's
the model, Baddy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the
It's
model
kinda
is
cute.
brilliant. He is. He's good. Look at him.
Oh, nice.
Like, free folk at this point can have like a huge wildlife army, having those chariots, bears, boars. Come on,
Absolutely.
guys, it's amazing.
Bear riders.
Exactly. Really cool.
key is if we've got bear riders, but do we have boar riders?
All right.
Oh my god! Now we're going full Warhammer Fantasy at this point,
I know,
like right,
Little
orc
orc
style.
on the back.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, dear.
Cool. Okay, then let's move on to the last part of this box. So we will now go over the NCUs that come along in these boxes, and we have first of all Lady Dalla. I actually don't even know who this character is. For me, she's like the Shira Errol of Free Folk.
Wasn't she Mance's wife, or am I?
I don't know shit about Free Folk. Sorry, guys. Like,
I think she was Mance Rader's
literally
wife.
read the books.
I read them like many years ago. So yeah, there's that. So you can blame me for that one. Yeah.
Please say you know who this is, Sebastian.
Well, yeah, I think she's Mance Rader's wife, and
Is she?
John
Okay, cool.
John protects her, I think, and the battle in front of the wall. And
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I think that's kind of what happened. Like, but that's as far as my recollection goes.
Lady Dalla is literally, as Sebastian says, is literally Mance's wife, right? Lady Val, who you seem to know, I don't know. Lady Val is Dalla's sister, or they are sisters. So they are related. And I think, remember rightly, Dalla dies, right? Spoilers. But Dalla dies, but it's Dalla's kid, which is Mance Rader's kid, that gets given to Val, if I remember rightly. And Val ends up giving it to Gilly, I think. Or something like that. Like, Gilly ends up looking after it. But you've got Gilly and Gilly's son and people like that are all involved with that whole thing, and the switching of babies and stuff goes on. But yeah, no, like Dalla is not a prominent character. She doesn't have a lot to do in the books, but she's very important to Mance and the Free Folk, and the overall story of what happens between the wildlings coming over and coming back to the wall, and Melisandre wanting to kill royal babies and stuff. So yeah.
Cool. Didn't know that, actually. I totally forgot about it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna even pretend that I know who she is. But hey, there you go. That's why you are here on the show. So yeah, you got this one covered. Let's talk about her ability, which is Spearwife Council. Each time Dalla claims a zone, perform the following based on the zone she claimed. If we claim the crown, one enemy becomes weakened. If we claim wealth, instead of removing a condition token, target one enemy engaged with that unit, and they suffer 1 hit plus 1 hit for each remaining rank in this unit. And if we claim tactics, instead of drawing cards, look at the top 2 cards of your opponent's tactic deck. You may discard one of those cards. Then place the remaining card on the top of the tactics deck. And she comes along for 5 points. She seems very good. I like this tactic ability. Like, the moment I saw her, I was like, wow, you can mess with your opponent. Like, am I wrong again? Like, you're looking like you're like
the money bag ability is like awesome, right? You still get to heal, right? You still get to heal your wounds.
Yeah, there's a lot of like I was just pointing out one.
That reminded me so much of the Baratheon card I hated the most before 2021. I forgot the name of it, but basically the Baratheon player got to heal and you got damage, right?
Stacks
resilience, right.
And it's like when I read that, I was like, this brings bad memories.
So I'm gonna convince Ilya that Dalla, the money bag ability is one of her best abilities.
I didn't say that the tactics is the best. I just said it's good. like she's overall very good.
Just remind the audience. Is Hold the Line good, Ilya?
Oh yes, of course it is. It's basically hold the line on the stick. I get where you are coming
exactly.
from. Yes.
I mean, I'm not even gonna lie to you. I might actually use Dalla to heal no wounds on a unit just to do 4 hits on my opponent, because that is statistically likely against some enemies to do more damage than the crown check. So it's actually better for me. Dalla, the money bags thing. Is good.
But you still get to heal, right?
Yeah, you also get to heal.
Still get to heal your unit. So that's the cool.
You're just
It's
sacrificing
just
the
condition
condition.
token. Yeah.
Exactly. You're just
Yeah.
sacrificing this part. Yeah.
The condition tokens in Free Folk, I mean, weakens for Free Folk are particularly bad.
Yeah.
Especially with defensive tech like Horrific Visage and Counter Strike and stuff like this. Like weakens are particularly bad with a 4+ to hit. With Disrupt lurking around as well, 5+ to hit where I'm weakened. I'm not going to hit you. You know, that is an issue. So taking away that is important. It's not just you're getting hits for free. But actually, I then raise the question: well, if I'm healing and I'm going back up to like 2 to 3 wounds, 2 to 3 ranks, and I'm doing 3 to 4 hits,
Yeah.
that's probably more than I would have even generated with my attack, regardless of the weakened token anyway. And I still get to do the weakened attack if I really want to. So yeah, that ability alone is good. The Crown's ability, people don't talk about this enough. Free Folk have 0 option to put out a weakened token outside of Letters and Mance's Wildling Diplomacy if they claim a zone. And arguably Surrounded and Exposed, but if they're that close, they've probably already charged you. So as a result, being able to take crowns later on in the round, when Letters may have already been picked up, is completely fine. That is completely fine. I get to do a panic test, and I can make an enemy unit become weakened. That's value. That's Pycelle. And Pycelle's good. No. So
I would also argue that weakened are perhaps the strongest tokens in the game at this point, because they have diminished like the amount of damage output throughout the entire armies and factions. So healing becomes more potent, more effective, and if you can just prevent even hits, going through, I think just weakened tokens at this point are very, very strong and very valuable. So yeah,
it's not just that as well. Obviously, weakened tokens, they're crit blow and things like this exist, and you can take that. You can start to strip those back, which is important. Yeah, I mean, I do think there's even more terrain that takes away rerolls as well. So you can really hurt people's charges, and sustained combat attacks as well. Yeah, I do think the Crown's ability is good. The Letters one, this is actually where it becomes difficult, and as I'm about to discuss as well, it's not just Letters, right? Letters is a good zone. Letters is a good zone because when I'm playing Mance Commander, I can draw more cards, and I can play more of my cards. Free Folk like drawing cards because Free Folk cards can be played. They're not Lannisters. They're not like, oh, I'm waiting for this trigger. They're not like old Baratheons where it's like, oh, this one trigger that happens once in a game. I've got 2 cards of it. Great. It's not like that. You're playing a deck, a little bit like Starks, to be honest, nowadays. You're playing a deck that is just like, the trigger will probably be met on the average round, so just play the card.
Right.
Having more cards means you can play more. As a result, Dalla taking Letters is a difficult trade-off because you're saying that the cards you have in hand are more valuable than the potential cards you're drawing. I fundamentally disagree with that concept. That is not going to be true the vast majority of the time, but it has some truth to it. Now, that's the negative side of it. Like, you have to think of the negative side of these effects as well as the positives. The positive being, she does allow you to discard one of your opponent's 2 top of their tactics deck.
Yeah.
That is good. And it's not just the discard, right? You know what the other card is.
Exactly. Yeah, it's basically scrying your opponent's deck. That's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That has value. It's one of these things where people look at that like tactics card thing and go, that's really good. And it's like, yes, the effect is good, but you're losing out something just as important. So the overall impact is actually, I'm not that interested in taking Letters with Dalla most of the time. But it does have value, and it is important. Okay? Now, the interesting thing with Dalla it's not an option. It's not a you may do this. It's a you have to do this instead, or on top of.
Right.
So you can't take bags and choose to take the condition token off. You have to do the hits. You can't take crowns and give a panic token. I mean, give a panic check, which you get anyway, but you also get the weaken. So it just buffs that zone. But the letters, you don't get to draw the cards instead. You have to scry your opponent's deck. And because of that non-choice involved, it does make Dalla's play a little bit more difficult. And then we have to consider what she replaces in the NCU lineups in Free Folk. She comes in at 5 points. She's replacing Steer. I like Steer. I played a lot of Steer in 2021. He was my go-to NCU outside of Lady Val. I do think that Steer has lost, actually, that because you're not looking to one-shot things with Spearwives anymore. You're not that interested in Steer as much. So you pull Steer out, you save the 5 points, you put in a 4-point NCU and an extra thing somewhere else, or you put another 5-point attachment. If you're looking for the 5-pointers, Dalla's you go to, obviously, as the alternative to Steer.
Right.
If you're not looking for a 5-point, then you're looking at maybe a 4-pointer, and you're looking at the likes of the ones we already have, like your Grit. If you haven't got her in there, Craster. I don't know if Dalla's good enough to replace one of those two. Maybe Craster, not sure. I've been kind of liking him recently. And then there's the other issue, which is if Dalla's taking horses or swords, well, you're just paying for a 5-point NCU that can do the job of a 4-point NCU.
Yeah, but
it doesn't do it.
I mean, you're not just bringing one NCU, right? So she's not going to take those zones.
Well, hopefully not, right?
Yeah.
But actually, that's important, and that is very important when we talk about the Endless Horde in Free Folk, because actually you want Craster sometimes. You want Lady Val. I mean, Lady Val's one of the best NCUs in the game. Lady Val's never taken the horses. Like, not really. So you're using Craster, who's a replacement zone effect, or your non-replacement zone effect, or maybe you don't have Craster. And actually, if you're not taking if you're using a zone replace effect on the horses to play Endless Horde, then you're not using the zone effect, you're using Endless Horde. Which means that replacement NCU is just a 4-point blank NCU for the purposes of those rounds. And in those lists, it's nearly always that NCU doing that job, right? You have that assigned job. Which means that, for me, at the moment, in my 3 NCU setup of Craster, Val, your Grit is the one that I take horses with to play Endless Horde.
Yeah.
Because then I have the option to do the replaces if I want to. Dalla replacing your Grit in those circumstances doesn't bring me anything. It isn't as good in that spot, which means that she has to take the spot of that Craster, which used to be my Steer, if people are following this line of thought. And that's the trade-off there. And that's a fine trade-off. I will point out to people this is a fine trade-off. But it's never quite as simple as just saying, "Oh, I'll put Dalla in there and she'll do this thing for me."
Yeah, right. Right.
But I do think she's good. I mean, I've talked about this web of lies. You know, I'm gonna go that crazy guy with the board being like, "Oh,
right, exactly."
But I do think Dalla's good. I really do think Dalla will see play. I think she has value. I think she's fantastic idea. I like it. I don't know how I'm going to use it yet, but I'm going to use it. So.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. What would you say? Would you use her letters ability perhaps in the first or second round of the game, where maybe this zone might be not as attractive as it seems to be, like for other factions? What would you say? Is it more important to get more cards in your hand, or just messing with your opponent's plan?
Yes, is the answer to that question. I would say that initially you want an opening round. Free Folk have got 2 options on the first play of round 1. You take horses to play in the sword, or you take letters. If you're the first player, those are the 2 things you do. If you're the second player, your opponent, the vast majority of the time, should probably think, he's probably going to play in the sword, so I should probably block horses with Baelish and take the letters or something. Or a replacement NCU if they want to, or something like that. Use the free maneuver. I don't mind. So as a result, I'm taking letters second. This means that I nearly always want to draw those 2 cards on round 1, just so I can see more decks setting up for round 2. if I didn't have Endless Horde, and if I did have Endless Horde, well, I'm still just putting more hands in my deck because I don't want to discard any of these cards. It's very unlikely. But ultimately, it depends on the cards you've got. Yeah, I can see Lady Dalla in the first 2 rounds, all depending on the circumstance and who goes first, who goes second, what cards you've got in hand. I can see Lady Dalla taking letters on the first 2 rounds of the game, and using that ability. But I think later on in the round, you will be using her on bags almost all the time if you can help it.
Right. Yeah, so. Sure. She seems like a very cool NCU in combination with those fence and hold the line. Like you could just double down on this mechanic and just vaporize a couple of 5+ save units without actually attacking them. Well,
yes.
Yeah, looks good. Looks good. Like she's good. Okay. After that, we have a new iteration of Mance Rader. Like this is the 3rd, right? 4th iteration. It doesn't matter. So Deceptive Bard. Deceptive Bard for 6 points. He's very costly. He brings along Intrigue and Subterfuge once per game. When an enemy NCU activates, that NCU loses all abilities until the end of the round. We know this one. And he has Disrupt Communication, which is an influence effect. And while influencing an enemy unit, your opponent may not target that unit with Tactic Zone effects or influence abilities. Is something like that worth 6 points?
He's a bit like a weaker version of the new Eddard, right? Except he doesn't have to die for his once per game.
Yeah, kind of, right?
But still, both abilities are just a little bit weaker than the.
The first thing that came to my mind is also Olenna Baratheon's. Like, she does kind of the same job, but better. But Mickey's looking like defeated.
Well, I will say this: everybody should be very, 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 very glad that Mance doesn't die when he uses his once per game.
Yeah.
And that sounds insane, where it's like, what do you mean I don't want my opponent's NCU to die when he uses it once per game? Because I have visions in my head of me taking the horses, playing Endless Horde, then deciding, actually, I'm going to kill Mance later on this round, and I'm going to take horses again and play another Endless Horde. That would be an absolute...
Yeah, right.
Like, to be fair, you'd actually be an activation down. It wouldn't be that strong, but it would be like... It would be an absolute just 2 fingers up, fuck you, you know what I mean?
Like, yeah, right.
That's unpleasant. So, thankfully that doesn't happen. Intrigue and Subterfuge, bringing that along is fine. Like, that's a tactics card you have guaranteed in your hand effectively all time during the game. Okay, it's a one-off, but like, if you just said to me, pick up your deck of Free Folk and put Intrigue and Subterfuge, 1 copy, in your deck, I'd be like, okay.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like, yeah, right.
You know what I mean? And then you're like, well, instead of putting it in your deck, I'll just actually let you play it on the table, and whenever you want to use it, just use it.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah,
that's okay. I'm happy with that. Yeah. Important things there, things like Olenna. Fuck you.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like,
there's other stuff as well that we might want to disrupt. I don't know. There might be a Night's Watch NCU who's quite popular with people. Otherwise, there's Orbital Strikes.
I'm playing this guy like in every single list at this point. Like,
really?
Yeah, but yeah, because he's just bonkers.
Maybe rather than Orbital Strikes of like Offal, maybe we might want to turn off drop pods that Amon brings, where it's just like, look, here's another unit worth of Bart, guys.
They're truly becoming Space Marines at this point. Like,
yeah,
they are.
Yeah. They're the elite. They're what the Imperium needs to hold back the chaos.
Exactly.
Oh God, no! I'm turning into a Night's Watch fan.
Filthy Xenos beyond the wall. Yeah, right.
God. Anyway, I do think Mance, that ability, Intrigue and Subterfuge, is fine. I don't know if I'm paying 6 points for that. If that was a 4-point NCU, I'd be like, okay, cool, whatever. Right, move on with life. I probably wouldn't take it that often, but it's fine. The Disrupt Communication is weird. We're seeing a lot of these abilities. You mentioned Eddard NCU, the new 6-pointer. We've got Barristan in the game. kind of like Elena-ish, kind of, but not really. I do think that this Mance Rader has power. Being able to, I mean, even just something simple, like coming down on an early round and just being like, and you can't target Drogo with his assault orders this turn.
Yeah,
and you go,
true.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's kind of shit. And there's a lot of power to that. But the big problem with a lot of these NCUs that we see is 6 points is a lot of points. And
yeah,
the most important zone play, so the bit you're doing it, the tactic zones and influence abilities, the most important one of those that comes down every single round is the first one. Which means, by definition, half the rounds, disrupt communication is not going to do what you want it to do. And that doesn't mean it's bad. It's obviously not bad. But it doesn't get you the value that you necessarily want. You then account for round one. Oh, I'm going to disrupt communications on that unit over there so you can't target them with any tactic zones. And your opponent goes, well, I'll just do, like, letters or something else, or like, you haven't done any damage to me, I don't care. But I can't target that one unit that much. Oh, you lettered my unit, and I've got, Bags or Caitlyn. I can't take off that weaken token that you placed round one. However will I cope? And it's like, that is powerful, but in the grand scheme of things, it's really not that big a deal.
He also blocks influence abilities, right? I mean,
yeah.
At least
and that's
worth
fine.
something. But I agree, 6 points is a hefty,
a little bit too much.
hefty price. Yeah.
And again, it's not that you're taking 6 point Mance Deceptive Bard. You're taking 6 points Mance Deceptive Bard in obviously not a Mance list. So you lock down.
But the problem is Mance at this point, right? Mance Commander.
But actually,
in a perfect world where Mance wouldn't be so effective, would you play this
into you? Problem, right? That's part of the problem, is that you can't compare him and say, but when Mance doesn't exist, you take this. And that's the problem, is that in the lists that don't run Mance, I actually don't think I want this ability, because it's not enough for the 6 points, because I'm already playing behind because I'm using a worse commander. So it's a horrible situation where it's like, I'd run this when I'm running a commander in a list that's good enough that it had those points over. But in the lists that this can be run in, I probably don't know if I have those points. And specifically, when we just talked about the guys before, that's like saying I'm going to take Baroque and a 4-point NCU and my boar, or I take the boar out of the list and I upgrade the 4-point NCU to a 6-point NCU.
Yeah, right.
Which is kind of like, there is an objectively better solution to that, I think. I don't know if that's an opinion-based solution. I think there's an objective better solution for that. And I think the boar probably wins out the vast majority of the time, unfortunately. So
interesting. Yeah, we can all agree that he's fine, but he's a little bit too costly. Like, if he would be 5 points, I think he would be totally fine. But 6 is just a little bit too much. There are a couple of niche cases where he might be good, because you can't claim swords and then deny the wealth zone to prevent some healing. This might be good, but 6 points good.
Yeah, it has to come up, right? I mean, I don't. For example, Eddard, who's, as I said, quite similar than you, Eddard. I don't think I'll play him in stocks. There's basically all the same reasons, and it's even worse. Like, you have to sacrifice him for his once per game ability, so now you're down 1 activation. So if you're really gonna make it count. If you play him in the, I mean, if it's the perfect moment and you play him right, then maybe it's great. And there's that possibility, but it's you really have to make the count, and it's 6 points. So it's really quite hefty, and I guess you got a similar issue here.
It's I mean, it's the weighing up as the like kind of like the last thing I would say really is that the Tywin NCU 6-pointer with his his one-time ability to do all of that stuff in one go is very good. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say it's garbage. It's not, but it doesn't quite like it's a lot of stuff for 6 points, and he's probably still not quite 6 points worth of NCU. You know, we've evaluated him before and we've said he's probably like 5 and a bit, maybe 5.5. Like if you had him for 5 points, you'd be pretty happy.
Yeah.
But at 6 points, it's difficult to fit him in and be super happy with it. And as a result, I think Mance falls into the same problem: is that 6 points has to bring you a hell of a lot.
I mean,
just don't know if it does.
Tywin, I think. Okay, we're derailing the conversation a little bit here, but
don't worry about it. We're off tracks at this point.
I think at a time where we saw plenty of Mother of Dragon lists, Tywin was actually quite useful to play into those lists. It was a very specific tool for that, and I think at that point we saw him a little more often than we do now, because that it was a quite powerful ability. For that problem, right, to solve that. Yeah. But okay,
there's also Here We Stand, right? So the most favorite game mode of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate this mode as well, so don't worry about it. Yeah. Okay, guys, then we have the final NCU in this box. Again, Jon Snow, Turncloak Crow. For 4 points, he brings along Southern Discipline. Once per game at the start of any round, you may search your tactics deck or discard pile for one coordination tactics or regroup and reform tactics card and add it to your hand. Shuffle your tactics deck afterwards. So you can just basically search for a specific card in your deck, which is coordination tactics. And coordination tactics is good, right, Mickey? I'm not wrong here.
No,
okay.
Coordination tactics is a good card.
I got one off, guys. Yeah.
He does enable. He does enable all those weird attachment combinations that you might think of. That we talked about earlier, where you need to draw into those cards. He does actually enable that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether I would take him for that, but it's an option now. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, we've kind of like somewhat affectionately, some of us sometimes referred to as the Exodia type lists, right? We saw it with people running Exodia Baratheons, where the idea was to go and get Renly killed, and then bring him back an infinite number of times with Jackal.
All right,
and you're like, ha! Everyone's Renly. And Jon Snow allows that kind of same thing with Free Folk, where it's like, so I've got my rattle shirt in Bone Lord's Chosen for 9 points, and I put Harmer's Bannerman in there to make it a 10-point unit. And then the very first thing in the game, I pop Jon Snow once per turn ability, and I move Steer's commander attachment into Rattleshirt's unit, and I go, ha! I've now got like horrific visage with intimidating presence and effectively Lannister supremacy or Fen supremacy back, and I've got Steer's cards to auto pass panic tests, and I hit on 3s, and I hit like a brick, and I've got Iron Resolve. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna? Yes, I've got like the equivalent, like an 11-point unit.
You lost the game.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you lose.
It's over.
But
next time, Kaiba. Yeah, right.
But the thing is, like, as much as people want that to be a thing, and don't get me wrong, like, I do think it's fun. It is great fun to have this unit that's just hilarious, but it's not great. And yeah, so Jon's fine, right? He's fine. The real thing that lets Jon down is his start of round ability, which means that kind of de facto you already know what's in your hand. So you can go draw it if you need it that round, which is good, but it's not a start of turn, which is obviously what you want. So that immediately holds him back a little bit. You have to know that you're going to want it that round to use it. But I'd say he's fine, right? Those cards are both good cards. You can draw them both in the early round, decide you want to discard them to get through the deck faster, or even use them and get them back and use them again. Nothing wrong with that. They're good cards. Card recursion is good. especially if it's on cards you want to see. These are cards you want to see. Therefore, John is good. I don't know if I'll use him much. I don't know if you'll see a huge amount of play. Like I said, and I'm not joking, I do think he enables a lot of these combos that people want to play. So as a result, I think he will see play, and I do think he's fine. I don't know if I'll run him in the top lists. I don't know if I'll run him in lists that I'm going to be taking to big events. But he's not garbage, trash, throw him in the box as soon as he arrives, right? You pick him up and go, he's another 4-point NCU that I might want to take. So,
cool.
And that's fine.
Cool. Yeah, that's all right. Having more options is always good. So
Yeah.
There's that.
Yeah.
Cool. So the last part of the box is actually one single commander, getting added to the Free Folk lineup. And it's the Great Walrus, the Lord of the Frozen Shore. Mickey, do you actually have the miniature somewhere around? Like, I would really like to see this guy a little bit. Like, he's big.
He is big. The only thing about him I don't like, right, is he looks a little bit like he's going to give someone a hug. Or, anyone here ever watch Mexican wrestling? He looks a bit like a guy who's going in like a Mexican wrestler, kind of like, right. Let's go, or anyone into their Rick and Morty. I'm walking here.
Yeah, right. I know what you're talking about. That's actually true. I haven't thought about this one.
He's a big guy. And I do actually like. I thought initially I didn't like his pose too much. I'm still not 100% on the arms, but I like the fact he's got a belly. I like the fact that he's the kind of guy that if he wanted to, he'd sit on you and kill you. And he's got a massive sword. Like, his sword is absolutely huge.
Huge, right.
And who doesn't like a man with a big sword? So, anyway.
He reminds me of a very angry, evil version of Santa Claus or the Grinch or something like that, because he kind of looks like, with those lanky arms, like, it's kind of weird. So I don't know why he has those weird proportions. Like, his arms look a little bit stretched out. Like,
yeah, maybe. I think he's just really hench, Ilya, but hench in a kind of like walrus way, where he's built up a lot of
so. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So, his attachment has, first of all, affiliation, Frozen Shore, which is basically a sub-faction now in Free Folks. Interesting. Yeah. And, his unit is a Frozen Shore unit. Then, on top of that, he has Go Down Fighting. And our most beloved ability of all time, Hardened. Well, I mean, he has Hardened, he's good. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's that. So,
yeah. Thanks all for watching.
Thanks, guys. Yeah. So, it's like, let's not pretend like it's otherwise, because Harden is just basically the best ability in the game at this point. Like, there's nothing better than this ability. And he has it now for Free Folk. The question is, now when we're going over his tactic cards, will he see some play alongside Mance? But this is, for me, the most interesting question. Okay. Should we talk about his attachment? Just jump right into his cards. What do you think, guys?
I think part of personally, I think a commander is valued just as much by his cards as he is by his attachment.
Yeah, I think so as well, actually.
Does need talking about. Hardened is not something I need to spend a long time convincing anyone of. It is a unit. It is a thing. I'm not convinced it's going to work as well in Free Folk, because ultimately the units we see hardened in the most, typically either good morale and like not good armor, but like average armor, 4+.
Yeah, 4+.
So
exactly.
Fen Warriors then.
And this is actually the problem that I would argue with the Great Walrus, in that I'm probably not going to put this in a 5+, 7+ unit of Follows a Bone. I'm probably not going to put this in a 5+7 unit of Spearwives. I'm probably not going to put this in Cave Dwellers. Okay, the morale is amazing. And yes, they do hurt themselves. But that's actually just a risk. You'll just get them down to 1 rank, and then they'll kill themselves, and you're like, I really had to try hard to get through that hardened when it was at its best. Great. And so the only real unit I see it in is the Thens at the 4+6+, which is exactly the same as Darksworn Swords at the 4+6+, where we see a lot of success with Mormont veterans. I do think him in Thens is good because it is the Mormont veteran Darksworn Sword combo that we see already. It comes in at a point less. That's good. As a result, though, I do think it pigeonholes him a little bit. And that is a problem. I would like to see him Cave Dwellers, just because I think the meme of like half killing your own unit and then your opponent can't do any wounds to you and you just slowly kill yourself is is a thing. Especially with Go Down Fighting as well to really build into the meme.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not sold on him elsewhere, so I think unfortunately he only goes in Thens, which is a problem a little bit. And I'm not going to put him in Raiders. God forbid, I'm not going to put him in Raiders.
There's that, guys. There's the attachment version.
Yep.
And now we will jump right to his cards. So first of all, he has Battle Endurance. Basically the same card that also Eldon Estermont.
Yeah,
I got him right. I'm always confusing this Estermont with the other one. They're two, right? Andrew, right, and Eldon. So Battle Endurance. Opinion? Mickey?
Well, the good thing you pointed out there, Ilya, is that it's like Eldon's Battle Endurance, not Grey Worm's Battle Endurance.
Exactly. Yeah, because
they are different.
Yeah. For whatever reason. But let's not talk about that.
Let's not. It's still one of the things that just really gets me.
Yeah, me too. Two free versions of Assault Orders, no, like two. Okay.
Yeah. Why? Just give them a different name, please.
Yeah,
anyway,
exactly.
Battle Endurance, the melee attack only version of Battle Endurance. It's fine. It's a bit of a weird one because actually I think Free Folk and the game at the moment, Battle Endurance as a card has improved in the Season 1 updates because the games go longer. So as a result, you see those Battle Endurance cards actually have an effect because ultimately you didn't really get beyond round 4 in most event games and beyond in games that were often played that were quite close. It was only the really, really close or comeback games where they went 6 rounds usually. So as a result, Battle Endurance just simply didn't see much play and ultimately didn't see much use. Now, Battle Endurance will see round 5, almost definitely. That means you're getting crit blow on a unit, and if you're getting that luscious round 6 +2 attack dice, let's go kill someone. That is
talking.
Exactly what you want. I don't even care about life. I just want to play Bone Lord's Chosen, right? With re-rolling misses, with Sundering, with Vicious, with Intimidating Presence, with Crit Blow, with 9 dice on 3s. I just want to slap some people over the head and be like, right, I'm killing people. Let's go. God, I'm really excited now. But unfortunately, it's not that good. It's good. It is good, but it's not like this can't be your best card. If Battle Endurance is your best card, then you're probably not an amazing commander. The difference is that actually in a very similar vein to Eldon, we see him with Battle Endurance and Hardened, which is exactly the same combo that Eldon has, and Eldon does do well for Baratheons. So I do think that those two cards alone, his unit ability and his card in Battle Endurance, is enough for making him to be good. We've still got 2 more cards left to go, so that's a good start.
Sure.
That's right.
Yeah. I actually like Battle Endurance just for one sole reason, because it's one of those cards, if you draw them early in the game, you can just simply play it in without any hesitation, thin out your deck, and then you have room for the more important cards, right? I like actually this aspect of the card.
Yeah, and it has a little bit of a psychological effect on your opponent.
Exactly, yeah.
Of course, it probably depends on how experienced they are, but some might try to kill that unit early, right? If they see that card coming down and they want to prevent you from getting all these bonuses, maybe they do something rash there. I've seen that happen. So yeah.
I really, really wanted to hijack in on Ilya's point there as well, though, about battle endurance over the likes of the quest cards, as they're now sometimes called. In the your unit dies, you get a bonus, because those cards are utter garbage in the late game. Because it's like, oh, I'm going to put this card on a unit, and I've only got 2 units left. Where if I lose one, I've probably lost the game. So in those close games, those cards, it was like. I saw someone. I played against a Stark player, and he drew his last 3 hand of cards, and he went, "Start a friendly turn. Here's Winter is coming. Oh, not Winter is coming. The North remembers. Sorry." And then it was my turn, and he went, "I'm going to play North remembers again on the same unit." And I'm just sat there being like,
so
"That's
sad.
just sadness." Whereas if he, I'm not saying they wouldn't stack anyway, but if he had battle endurance coming out, then he could be like, "Oh shit, battle endurance! I now get rerolls, crit blows, sundering,
right.
Wow. No, it's much better than the quest cards, generally speaking. So that is a real plus. I really like that point you brought up, Ilya, about late game versus early game, and I think that is important.
One last aspect about this card is actually it's kind of weird that it doesn't have a lot of synergy with the actual Frozen Shore units, right? Because Bear Riders, which are a Frozen Shore unit, have all those keywords already going for them. So you don't really want to play this card on them. Maybe for the rerolls, I guess, if you want to.
But the commander makes any unit he's in a Frozen Shore.
Exactly, yeah. That's why basically Fens are getting a lot of keywords throughout the game. That's what it's coming down to. But yeah.
It's important to remember that this card doesn't have to be attached to a Frozen Shore unit. Like
exactly,
that's actually the thing. It's just that, ironically, that is his one card where putting it on a Frozen Shore unit is probably not the best option. It's actually you put that on the non-Frozen Shore stuff.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Again,
exactly.
Ultimately comes down to you're putting it on Fens.
Yeah.
Or follows a bone.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, but it's not that bad as we just analyzed. It's not bad. So, second card, Frozen Shore Resilience. When an enemy is performing an attack after rolling defense dice, target the defender. They may reroll any defense dice, a little bit like the Shield of the Realms of Men for Night's Watch. And if the defender is a Frozen Shore unit, they may also reroll any panic test dice for this deck, which is something new in this combination. So, I mean, solid card as well, right? But it's like defensive tech for free folk, and it's again like the best value you will get out of this card is for Bear Riders, Fens. Maybe Followers of Bone have 5+ saves, so it's kind of meh. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with this card. That doesn't mean I think it's brilliant. It's just one of those cards which you look at and go, yeah, fine, move on with my life. It has play. It's especially good in free folk, which play around the idea of taking rerolls away from enemy attacks. And vulnerable tokens hurt us because of the low armor. So being able to go, actually, you know what, I'm going to try and get a couple more saves out. That's going to be useful, especially on 4+ on Fens. But a lot of the time we're fighting Sundering related stuff. Sundering's quite common, so you're seeing a 5+, you're seeing 6+, and in that case is re-rolling a couple of failed saves to maybe get 1 or 2 extra blocks is fine. Like that is enough to save a unit. It's enough to do the work you want to do. Maybe save a rank to keep your attack dice up or something like that. But the much more important one is that re-roll on the panic, because you're not running Mance Commander. Right by that point again, so your morale is probably 6 or 7 ultimately. Yeah, you might be 5 on the Frozen Shore, but Fens have got 6 morale. Getting to reroll that's really useful, because actually rerolling a 6 morale is quite likely to pass. Rerolling even a 7 morale, if you've got him somewhere 7, that's quite likely to pass. Rerolling on the Bears is massive, because Bears don't want to take much damage if they can help it. They have quite a good sustain anyway. Rerolling a 6+ there is good. You know, dealing 6 hits to a chariot is not that easy when it gets to reroll its 5+ armor save, maybe 6, and then a 5+ morale save with a reroll. Actually, that's quite hard to kill on 6 wounds. So Frozen Shore Resilience has play with the 2 units that it wants to see. It has play with the Great Walrus's unit. Outside of where the Great Walrus is and his Frozen Shore units, though, rolling might get like an extra save or 2 on trappers or raiders. Like,
what
I'm
about
not massively happy.
What about your most favorite unit? Maybe your second most favorite unit, the Mammoth. 3+ save.
Yes, there is that. You can bail out a Mammoth from a big hit, and that has a lot of value, especially in the world where Lance Cavalry come in and charge Mammoths in the flank, which is kind of what they try to do.
Yeah.
That has play. I do think that the Great Walrus might see play with Mammoths. I don't.
Interesting.
I'll be honest with you. A little aside, nothing to do with the box. I'm not sure about Mammoths. I see people doing well with them. I do think that they are good, but I'm not getting the success I want out of them. I'm not seeing the success I want out of them. And a lot of it comes down when I see people talk about, oh, I did this, and then I did that, and then I did that. And I'm like, okay, but you've done all those things. You've been allowed to do that by your opponent. Or those are suboptimal plays because you haven't, you didn't draw in a sword, so you took horses and moved. Well, you didn't draw in a sword. That's a better play. Now, admittedly, that's random, right? But like, it's things like that. It's not to say Mammoths are bad. I do actually think Mammoths have a place and are good, but I don't know how much value people are actually getting out of them versus what they are actually worth. But the Great Walrus can make them work because re-rolling a 3+ or a 4+ once you encounter Sundering or Flank, that's a tanky unit at that point.
Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah, interesting. I haven't seen Mammoths in a while now, but I would be glad to see them making a comeback because their previous iteration was a nightmare in any way and shape or form.
You mean up here? Remember back in the days where we talked about writing articles and the stuff that we did back in the day with the guild, and then it was like crap.
Exactly. Like
and
it
now
was.
It's like, they're probably okay.
I think they're fine. And they might see some play finally after a while now with the Walrus.
Yeah.
So speaking of, the last card is Valros Strength. When a friendly unit is performing a melee attack before rolling attack dice, if this unit is a Frozen Shore unit, this attack gains +1 to hit, and if this unit began the turn engaged with the defender, it rolls its highest attack die value. It's like Sustained Assault, just a little bit changed, I guess. What do you say? I mean, like, fine?
I mean, +1 to hit is pretty good, right? I think that's actually pretty good. So, and what was it? Highest attack die value, yeah, that's fine. But the +1 to hit, I think, is really, really useful.
So, I have a lot of issues with this card.
You do?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Why is that?
Overwhelming Assault, it doesn't combo with, right? +1 to hit is good, but it's only Frozen Shore Frozen Shore units, remember. So that +1 to hit is going on Frozen Shore Bearers, which already hit on a 3, so they're hitting on a 2. Okay, hitting on a 2 with precision does allow you to go for the rerolls if you've got rerolls in an attempt to precision fish, which is good. There is that opportunity with the +1 there. With Chariots, you turn a Chariot on a 4+ to a 3+, but it's got 4 dice. It's nearly always going to be charging. The Chariot does its damage through its auto hits, not through the dice that it rolls. Like, I just don't care. And the second half doesn't matter because it's either never engaged or it's charging. and it didn't start the turn engaged, or it's dead, or it started engaged and the thing I should be doing is running away with it so I can charge with it, not making an attack while in melee. So, like, yeah, I mean, I'm not that fussed with the Walrus Strength and the Chariot. The Frozen Shore Bear, the bears, like, the best value you're getting out of this is saying, my bears are down to 1 rank, so I use this to be +2 attack dice and +1 to hit. And that's fine for 1 attack. That is fine. It's not that good. It's not like, oh my god. The only other place you see this then is the Great Walrus's unit.
Yeah.
Which plays into that Fen, I want to grind you out style. And all of a sudden I jump from 4 dice up to 7, so that's +3 dice, that's nice. I get the +1 to hit something on 3s from a 4. 3 to 4 is a massive change compared to 3 to 2. Because it proportionally is quite significant. So the Walrus Strength ends up being a card that I only want to see play on my Fens with the Walrus in. That's not a problem. I like the ability to, pump up my unit that's got hard and that's been on 1 rank up to its maximum ranks to deal a solid amount of damage. But I'm not playing Overwhelming Assault in those cases, which I probably would get rerolls and Sundering or rerolls and Crit Blow. So I'm not playing that. But maybe I have Battle Endurance, so I have the rerolls and Sundering there. It's not that the Walrus Strength is bad, because it's not. But if you're right, I mean, Ilya, you played a lot of Brathians before, right?
Yeah, kind of.
How much? And Greyjoys have got Sustained Assault in Victarion, right? How much do you actually use Sustained Assault that often?
Yeah, well, I think it's a bad card, actually, because Kraken's Wrath and all this stuff is way better.
Yeah. And the best this really gets, is those situations. And the vast majority of the time, you're probably just using it for a +1 to hit on Bear Riders or a Chariot or the Great Walrus. And that's fine. +1 to hit on attack is fine. But I'm not being like, it's a great card, because it's not. +1 to hit is just hooray.
Yeah.
Doesn't help the rest of my army, basically, at all. So
yeah, okay.
Except maybe Raiders. Maybe I want to use it on Raiders to roll 6 dice rather than 4.
Yes, I see what you're saying. Basically, it could have been replaced with something a little bit more useful, let's put it that way. Something more that plays into maybe an aspect that hasn't been covered by the basic deck. Maybe another defensive tech would have been also good. I don't know. Something like Resilience or something like that.
The thing is, Walrus Strength does actually play with Battle Endurance, right? And it gives the same kind of effects. It doubles down on all these effects and things that you want, and that's really good. That is actually really, really useful, really strong.
It's just indeed a bit weird now. Come to think of it, that it has both effects have a condition attached to them, right?
Yes.
So
right.
The first one it's Frozen Shore unit. The other one is you have to start engage. Maybe it would be more interesting if it were just +1 to hit on any unit and maximum dice if it was a Frozen Shore unit or something like that. It doesn't help really the Chariot, but yeah.
There is a thing here which is worth pointing out, which is true of all of these cards. Less so with Resilience, and I think it's important to note with Frozen Shore Resilience, this opportunity is going to come up a lot less, but matters a lot more for Walrus's Strength. And I do mean a lot more. Walrus Strength is when I'm performing a melee attack, which I typically do on my turn, which means I have control over what I'm activating, where it's happening. Frozen Shore Resilience is when I'm being attacked. That's on my opponent's turn. The Great Walrus brings Affiliation Frozen Shore. I can coordinate tactics Frozen Shore onto another unit. If I can coordinate Frozen Shore onto another unit, okay, I gain Countdown Fighting, I gain Harden. I don't really care about those 2 abilities. But I can gain those 2 abilities if I want to, if that's particularly useful on the defense. Again, I have to predict what my opponent's going to do. But it does allow me to then go, right, well, that Raider unit that was on 1 rank with a Raid Leader that's got a friendly unit engaged, now attacks on 6 dice. It's now attacking with the +1 dice from the Raid Leader at 7 dice. And now it's hitting +1 to hit with the unit because of the unit engaged from the raid leader. So I'm hitting on 3s, and it's a Frozen Shore affiliation, so now it's hitting on 2s. 7 dice on 2s from a 4-point unit is freaking unpleasant.
Yeah.
But the problem is like I'm talking now, and this is where you have to like thinking with portals. That's thinking with free folk. You have to think about those ideal situations and go, how can I make those things happen as often as possible? And what's the likely outcome for that to happen? My point being, there's play. There is play. That's good. It's a lot of resources to make one good attack.
Yeah. I see where you're coming from. Yeah. I can understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but overall, like your final impression on this commander, what would you say? Is he a viable commander at this point for free folk? Like, would you take him in a 2-list format? Let's put it that way.
So, I mean, some people will say no, right? Some people will say no because of one thing that they always say is that Mance is just the best, so you just take Mance. Yes, we established Mance is up here, right? Mance is.
We all know that, guys. Yeah, right.
Right. We know that. Yes, you take maybe you take double Mance to an event, right? Now, in my head, I would be stupid to not take Mance as one of my 2 lists. So the question then becomes: Does Walrus contend for that second slot? Where I don't like taking the same commander twice. Ideally, I don't like doing that. At the moment, I run. I was saying before to you earlier, I run Steer and Tormund in those lists. At the moment, as my seconds that I kind of like, I did have a Harmer list that I was kind of like dabbling with. I do think there's a Weeper list maybe that I'd run, but I do think it's so cookie cutter that I don't think it's worth it because you probably just run up the Mance list most of the time anyway. So I think the Great Walrus throws himself into the mix with the Steer and the Tormund lists. And if he's in the mix with those 2 other ones as like the second tier, then the Walrus will see play. And the Walrus will see consideration in a 2-list format. So that's enough, right? Yes, he's not Mance, but he doesn't have to be Mance to be worth consideration. So I do think he will see consideration. I do think he'll see play, and Hardened is good, so he will see play for that alone. I don't know if I'll run him much in events. I'm still not sure, but yeah, he'll see play. He'll see event 2-list format.
Interesting. Oh, cool.
So yeah,
that's actually nice to hear.
Yeah, and there's still the aspect of if you're not playing at an event, right, just with mates, and you.
Oh yeah.
I'm pretty sure he can be fun to play.
Oh,
so,
100%. Yeah. I'll be honest with you. It sounds really bad, and this is not to demean people who only play for fun, right? Because the game is all about playing for fun. I don't really consider list building for fun that much because I think that if you enjoy something, just play it. Who cares if it's actually good or bad? Just go and play it. Like I've played some stuff that I think is utter garbage, but I was like, sod it, I'm having a fun game, I want to try this out, and I go, I am right, this is utter garbage, but hey, I enjoyed it. I do, to kind of respond to that properly, Bartender, though, I do think he's good enough that for casual games you pick him up and you're not at disadvantage, so that's important.
Yeah, and if you pull off that once in a lifetime, round 6 followers of bone combo.
Yeah, that's a dream. That's the dream.
Yeah.
Oh mate, I really want to see someone come on to Tabletop Warden or leave a comment being like, I made it work, I put the Walrus in there, I built this combo, I had Jon Snow NCU to enable it, and I built the combo, and I went in with and I just demolished like a unit, and I was so happy, and I'm just like, yes, I don't even care if you won the game or not. That is just brilliant.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's the spirit. Yeah, you're totally right. People should play what they like to play. Like it's not always about being like the best, winning all the time. I'm about to try out like Rickard Cast. Like I know he's garbage, but I really like. I mean, he has Taunt as a card, guys. Come on.
But actually, Taunt as a card isn't as bad
better.
as Taunt
I know.
as an order.
It's still taunt though.
It is still taunt, but you get to decide where and when to use it. I think it has way more utility than the order.
I wanted to pull off some crazy ass combos like using Arya to retreat from a unit, and then my spearmen are like in short range of this disengaged unit, and then he has to charge them, and then basically I can charge him again into the flank or something like that. Like pulling off those crazy combos that you just dream about, and if you manage to pull them off, you just feel good. But at the end of the day, it's not that good overall. Like it won't work most of the time, but it's fun when it's happening.
But then you use taunt to have somebody charge your bloody mama skirmishes with Cereal Forel in them or something.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Stupid like that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm for the fun of it.
And then maybe you can just on top of that, like use Howland and CU to make them like ruin the day entirely.
Yeah. Exactly.
I attacked you with my Stag Knights, and I died.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
I've got one point of critique regarding the box, and that is I don't dig the artwork on the cards. Is that just me? I think I don't know. Somehow I think
John looks kind of cool. Really?
No, really?
There's the Great Walrus there.
Now I know who he reminds me of. He looks like a Warcraft character. But I can't point my finger at. Like he totally looks like something from Warcraft. World of Warcraft, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like John. I really do like John, actually.
Jon Snow's art's fine. It's a little bit different to his other art, which is a bit weird. Like it's not just the same art with a different pose. They've actually his face is different. It's a bit strange. The Bard one, I like the Bard art. I think it's fine. He's not as animated as I would like, but I like the coloring. I'm going to enjoy painting his model. I like to try and, when I paint a lot of my models, I like to try and paint them like the art on the card, because for me, that's like, well, that's that model. And anyone's welcome to do what they want, of course. But then I like to mix it up. Those that play on TTS have seen the TTS. You've seen that I use that green for my Trapper, one of my Trapper units, and I really like that green, so I'm happy with him. Baroque is interesting. On the art piece, the kind of pelt around his neck is fine, but then he's kind of like basically traditional Raider Brown. Fine. Also, his face looks really weird because his face looks like the Mance Rader in the TV show. The guy who plays him, it looks very similar.
Okay. Well, okay.
So, yeah. Dalla is, again, fine. It's a bit of a shame because she's wearing the brown dress, which it's just boring.
Yeah,
just more
it
brown.
is. Yeah.
So yeah, the artwork's fine, but I can understand why it would put people off. It's not the nicest artwork out there, and really for me, only Mance is the one that I look at and go, I like that one. So yeah, the rest are fine.
Yeah, I also noticed that there are like 3 artists involved in the artworks. They're like 3 styles of artworks all the time, and the Free Folk artwork for the box, for example, is very similar to those of the Baratheons. Maybe this is the reason why you don't like it, because those Baratheon boxes also are kind of, some of them, like not all of them.
Not sure. There's some I don't dig it as much. So, I think there's better artwork. Yeah.
It looks very comic-esque. Like,
yeah. And the issue is like that Mance there, just to give you an insight, that Mance, yes, he's got the colouring right and the hat and stuff, but it just doesn't look like the Mance in the artwork. At all. And I will say this that I don't like about the box art. Baroque's boar's not on it.
Okay.
Why didn't they just put a box on a boar?
It is.
Wow, it is on
sleeping.
it. Jesus.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Next to the fire.
Wow. I thought that was dead.
Why did I even invite you to this show? You know nothing. All credibility lost.
I know, right? I'm sorry that I don't look at box art. God, what am I?
How
A
dare
casual player.
Filthy. But hey, guys, there you go. This was our impression, mostly Mickey's. Let's be honest about Free Folk Heroes Box 3. So maybe your last word. Would you recommend buying this box?
Hey, I would always recommend buying hero boxes
Yeah.
because it gives you options, it gives you characters, and one of the few things about this game, and we've seen it in updates and things happening. One of the few things about this game is we play it for the characters, and we want to see characters on the board. So having more access to more characters that you might like, is worth it. I know people, and I can probably name people who will pick up this box simply because it has Jon Snow in it, and that's enough for them to buy it. And you know what? That is exactly what the game is about. It's playing those characters. It's such a shame that so many of them, when we look at competitive lend, are not quite good enough to make the cut. Because I want to see I want to see Jon Snow in Free Folk. I want to see the Great Walrus on the table. I want to see Mance. I want to see Tormund. I want to see Rattleshirt, Harmer. These characters are what makes Game of Thrones Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So 100%, I would always say, yes, this might not be the box for you if you were buying competitive level. I want to have the best army and crush people and be amazing. Yeah, this might not be the best. But if you want characters and you want to play the game and experience the faction, this should be your third or fourth box to buy. So yeah,
cool,
100%.
Cool, nice. I want my Victorian with the red hand, guys, when it's about to happen, because. Yeah, exactly. But there you go. A recommendation from Mickey: buy the box, have a lot of fun, try out the new cool stuff that Free Folk got. Because at the end of the day, this is our opinion. So maybe you think otherwise, and that's totally fine. Prove us wrong, or prove us right. Feel free to do as you like, and leave a comment down below. And also, we will put down a link to the guys over at Stats so that you can check out their website. Because if you're playing, for example, on TTS, you should also use Stats. I know I have been not the most active user on Stats. You could punish me later on for that, Mickey. Don't tell Carlo. But you guys totally should do that. Put in your games. Help the community to basically get better data on the game so that we can build a competitive foundation, or even a casual foundation, just that you guys can see what is cool, what is actually not that cool maybe. And for me personally, in the past, it also helped me to decide which stuff I wanted to buy, because I didn't have a lot of money, and I was like, okay, what is the cool new stuff on the block? Go over the stats, look it up. And
and it does have a great list builder, and it's also quite useful to prepare for your game if you go to your gaming club or store, wherever you happen to play. If your mate also is registered on the site, you can just challenge them and set up the entire game, and you only need to bring that specific army that you're actually going to play, right? You don't need to bring 2 or 3 or however many armies with you. You already know the game mode, you know your list you're going to play against, which list you're going to play. So as a prepping tool, I think it's quite useful. And at least report one game, because it opens up so much more tools on the side that you don't have access to if you don't. So yeah, I recommend everybody does that. It's really useful.
I could preach, but I don't want to preach. But one of the things that because that doesn't help anyone. But one of the things that's very important for us is and don't think that your game is any worth less than somebody else's. Everybody's game is just as important, be it the top table of Gen Con, Adepticon, or the LGT, or any of those other big events. That top table game is just as important as a kitchen table game that someone has with their dad at home, because they're all games, they're all data, they're all valuable. And understanding your games and how you play and having that included within the data makes us feel better as people, because it's like we're not leaving parts of the community behind, and then the data over time will reflect what you see, and hopefully you'll be able to go, oh right, I thought that was good and now it's doing well. Oh, I was right, yeah. Or I didn't think it was very good and it isn't doing well. I was right again.
It's a win-win situation all the time.
Yeah, don't think of it as just competitive people, because
Exactly.
it's for anybody. It's a tool to be used.
Okay, cool. I think we're done for this episode. Next time we will actually go south beyond the wall, back to the Castle Black. And don't give me that look, Mickey. You know. Next time we will talk about actually the Night's Watch. But for this episode, thanks a lot, Mickey, for being with us and giving us your input. It was very valuable.
And it was fun. So
yeah,
always a pleasure.
Pleasure
awesome.
Always.
Okay, guys, thanks a lot. Tune in next time for the Night's Watch episode. See you around. Bye.